I'm Charlie Watts. I am the drummer.
I'm Brian Jones, and guitarist and harmonica player.
Keith Richards, guitar. Mick Jagger, I sing.
Songs. Bill Wyman, I play bass. Guitar.
In 1962, Brian Jones places an ad in the Jazz News looking for musicians to form a new rhythm and blues band. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards respond, and soon they begin to rehearse at the Bricklayer's Arms, a pub in Soho. They rehearse Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters and Bo Diddley songs. Brian Jones later tells the Marquee Club, where they begin to play, that they are called the Rolling Stone Blues. He got it from a Muddy Waters song. Brian Jones receives an acoustic guitar for his 17th birthday from his parents during his antagonistic, rebellious teenage years. Although he was a good student at one point, he begins a rebellious streak and combative personality, and is suspended from school multiple times during this time. Jones gets his 17-year-old girlfriend pregnant. He begins to live a bohemian life wandering around Europe, and eventually fathers 2 other children with another young woman. He works odd jobs and eventually begins to play blues bands in London. Mick Jagger, on the other hand, received a scholarship to the London School of Economics after receiving excellent marks in both primary school, where he met Keith Richards, and in Dartford Grammar School. Mick has been singing in his church choir since childhood, and at age 14 receives his first acoustic guitar. He begins playing with his friends and forming bands during this time. Additionally, Jagger is very athletic, playing basketball, football and swimming in school. His athleticism would come in handy later on for his stage persona. Jagger meets Richards again in 1960 by chance. They form a friendship with their common interest in rhythm and blues. Jagger begins exhibiting his mischievous personality during this time. Keith Richards is Mick Jagger's neighbour until 1954, when Richards' family moves to another area. Keith's mother introduces him to jazz music, including Duke Ellington and Billie Holiday. His grandfather, who is a musician, introduces young Keith to the guitar. Keith is not as studious as Mick, and is eventually expelled from Dartford Technical School for truancy due to his endless hours spent skipping school to listen to music. He eventually goes to art school but begins pursuing a music career playing guitar. On a chance meeting with Jagger on a train on Jagger's way home from London School of Economics, Keith spots Jagger carrying rhythm and blues records, and the two strike up a conversation and become fast friends. Both Keith Richards and Mick Jagger will eventually land at Ealing Club and see Brian Jones play for the first time, both mesmerised. Once Brian, Mick and Keith form their band, then begin living together in Chelsea in a 2-room slum. The place was often filthy, as Mick still attended London School of Economics while Brian and Keith listened to music and practiced guitar. Tensions between the three often turned to fisticuffs. When their bass player Dick Taylor left the band for art school, they auditioned Bill Perks, a well-dressed and excellent bass player. Bill was not impressed with them, but he joined anyway. The well-dressed, stoic bass player would later be known as Bill Wyman. Although you wouldn't know it by looking at him, Bill Wyman grew up on the poorer side of town with an outdoor bathroom. He was not a good student, but he had one thing going for him. His mother loved music and passed it along to him. Bill left school and joined the Royal Air Force for a brief time, then went on to odd jobs such as a bookmaker, meat importer and shopkeeper before taking up music. He believed his hands were too small for the guitar, so he took up bass. The cool, collected and ever-polite Charlie Watts was like Jagger, an excellent student, easily passing up his friends in school discussing Kierkegaard and his heroes Charlie Parker and Jelly Roll Morton. Also like Jagger, Watts was athletic in school. He later entered art school and began working as a graphic designer in advertising. He occasionally played the drums with local bands and dreamed of playing professional jazz. One night he played with Blues Incorporated and had a chance encounter with Brian Jones. Jones eventually invites Watts to join the Rolling Stones and lineup becomes complete. The band played R&B with a primal, fierce energy that drove the girls crazy. The word soon spread about the Rolling Stones, and one night they looked over to see the Beatles watching them from the side of the stage at the Crawdaddy Club in London in 1963. The Rolling Stones Blues soon become the Rolling Stones and are signed by Decca, and in January 1964 score their first #1 in the UK with It's All Over Now. Then on June 12th, the Stones made the US chart with I Can't Get No Satisfaction, an undeniable classic with one of the most famous intros in rock music. It becomes their first American #1, and the first to top the charts on both sides of the Atlantic.